Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today on the Divine Messages podcast. My name is Karina, and I am a psychic medium out of Calgary, Alberta. I have to admit that I'm a little bit nervous for my next guest to come on here. He is Pam's son, Graysen, and he's sitting right beside me right now, which I never have my guests record with me in person, but Spirit guided us to do it this way. So today we're going to honor that. He drove over an hour to be here, and I couldn't be more grateful. So please, everyone, help me welcome Graysen to the podcast. Hi, Graysen.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm nervous.
I'm a little nervous too, but
I never get nervous like this, but I think having you sit beside me and do this in person is what's intimidating because you do carry a very, very strong, high energy. And obviously we've been sitting together, for the last hour and a half in my healing room, having a really great discussion.
Having a podcast to ourselves pretty much.
We did. I could talk to you for hours. And I thought, well, I guess we should probably go up and record. And then I sat here with the laptop in front of me going, oh my God, I have to hit record. What am I going to say? And it's intimidating, I think, to do it in person with someone as opposed to Zoom. So
yeah, but it is what it is. I mean, Spirit, like you said, guided us together. And I felt like I right away was just drawn to come. Felt like I had to do this in person. Well, I asked my mom first if you normally do that.
Yeah.
And I think she said no, and never. And I was like, interesting. I've never done a pod over the phone, but I just was like, you're not that far away. I can just give a quick drive over.
An hour and something, right?
That's nothing for me.
No,
I
okay,
live
good.
In the car, so.
Do you? Okay, well, good.
I love the car. It's my safe space. So.
I love that. I was really grateful that you actually drove all the way to come here and do this because I knew that day when did I see you last? 2 weeks?
It was
about 2 weeks ago. Or maybe
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, something like that. We saw each other and you came in for a session, and I knew in that moment that I was reading for you that I had to ask you to come on here, and I can't explain it. It was just a knowing. And then everything unfolded, and that day and the day after, and then I ended up having your mom come on here first to explain
I haven't
the story.
listened to the podcast with her yet.
You haven't listened to that yet?
No, so I asked her if I should listen to it. She kind of gave me mentioned briefly what you guys talked about, kind of, but not really anything into it. So I listened to the first one you did with her, which was really good. Okay. Just about you guys and your guys' how you guys met and stuff like that, and with your dads and stuff. Yeah. And my grandpa. So that was a really cool podcast to listen to with you two. And then, I don't know. I just didn't feel like it would make it a little more authentic if I didn't listen to it beforehand. And
actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah, not knowing anything.
And just.
Well, I'm going to explain some stuff to you then about what happened because I think it does make sense. And for anyone that's out there listening that hasn't listened to the episode with Pam, his mom, I will explain that Graysen is one of the 13 survivors of the Humboldt Broncos bus tragedy. And when I first met his mom, I had no idea that even as a psychic and a medium, none of that ever came up in any of her sessions. And the day that she brought you to me to work with you, I had no idea what I was going into. And then all of your session, everything just unfolded. And what transpired after that when you left, did your mom tell you about what happened to me at the doctor's office and the tattoo? And
I remember the tattoo because we were talking about that after my session, right? And then it was the 16 birds, right?
That was with
the dark. It was
because I had seen that with you, the birds coming off of your chest, and then you showed me your friend's tattoo. But so that day I went with my son to the doctor's right after you left, and I was going to do a meet and greet for this new doctor, and so she wanted to take my blood pressure. And for some reason, the machine just wouldn't work. And I was like, what is wrong? How am I dead? What's happening? And she ended up coming back a couple of times to try to redo it. And I'm almost positive it was the second or third time she came and did it. And I looked down at her wrist and I was like, oh my God, what am I seeing? And she had her sleeve kind of pulled up and she had a name written on her wrist with all these little black birds flying up her arm. And I was like, oh my God. And so that's the stuff you can't make up, right? And I sat there going, there's a bigger reason of why I saw this tattoo. What is the reason? So I ended up asking the girl if I could take a picture of it. I thought that's weird, but I did it anyways. So I got the picture and I texted it to your mom right away. I was like, okay, you've got to see this. This is weird. And then I was driving home and I got such a clear message that I had to have your mom on the podcast first before you. Mm-hmm. And because remember when you were sitting with me, I said to you, okay, I'd love to have you on the podcast. You said, yes, okay, I'd love to do that. And then I got the message that your mom had to come on first and explain the story and then bring you on here. So
yeah, well, it's kind of set the stage a little bit. Yeah.
Right. And so everybody else, all the listeners, if they did listen to that episode, would know your story from your mom's perspective. Yeah. But today is, we're doing it from your perspective. I wanted you to share your journey with everybody because not only about the accident, that's not the whole point of this podcast today. It's really to explain your spiritual journey and what has happened to you over the last, little while, especially. And
I'd say the last 5 years, like since that was kind of like the TSN turning point, I'd call it, like in my spiritual journey where things really shifted.
So let's take everybody back in time then, before the accident, because I know that even downstairs you mentioned something to me that you said, wait, I'll tell you that on the podcast.
Well, that gets a little bit, that was after the accident stuff when we were talking about before, but what do you mean, like just before the accident? Just like kind of my
I would
mindset
say,
and stuff like that?
Where were you at on your journey? Did you understand the other side? Did you understand spirituality?
I was always kind of intrigued by, and I don't like the word, but conspiracy and like, I always knew it wasn't exactly what we have been told. Like whatever it may be, I've learned over the years. I always knew, there was a certain level that truth wasn't fully there. So I mean I remember looking and like watching old History Channel shows where they talk about aliens and stuff like that, but it was never, I was always intrigued, but I never fully believed any of it. Like I just didn't really know what was true, I would say, but I always had a feeling that something was off. And I guess I didn't really fully realize a lot of that until, after the accident. The first like memorable experience I can have, like I remember, was in the hospital. It was a couple of days before I was in Saskatoon still, a couple of weeks, and I was about to leave to go to Calgary, and my mom, she, through I think my auntie, had a Reiki master that wanted to come and see me, or she wanted her to come do some work on me. And I was like, I was locked in the bed, kind of couldn't really move with a broken back, so I couldn't really say no. But at the same time, I was like, yeah, whatever, like I don't really fully accept this at all, but I'll let her do whatever. Like I was pretty numb at the time and I didn't really care, basically, is what it was. So she came and changed my life, because like she didn't even touch me at all. She just put her fingers right below my feet, like underneath my toes a little, but wasn't touching me. And I felt like the energy go right through me, like into every little part of my body. Like my fingertips were going just crazy, and I was just blown away. I was like, what is happening? Like, what are you doing to me? And I just didn't get it, but I knew right there that like you couldn't make that feeling up. It was real. And that was kind of the start, I would say, is after that. And I started, I went to one of my mom's Reiki girls who lived close by in another town. And, I was still skeptical, though, a little bit. I didn't really fully, I knew there was something, but I didn't know what it was. And when I didn't understand it, I didn't trust it.
Fair.
So but I knew there was something to it. And she started telling me things about, like my best friend Ryan passing away, and a couple of the other guys who passed away in the accident that would come to her and stuff. And I would be like, okay, like she is saying things that probably are impossible to know, but I was in the public eye at the time, and like I had no way of trusting if someone, it was a simple Google search, and there was a lot of stuff on my name and stuff that could have popped up. So, you know, I was skeptical of that as well. But I ended up taking one of my really good buddies there to go see her because I told him about it, and he was pretty intrigued. So I lined this up where I got, and he lived in a different town, had no idea who she was. She had no idea who he was. And she started naming his grandparents that passed away through this Reiki session at the end. And he actually tragically lost his girlfriend when he was 16 in a car accident. And I think he was really looking for a message from her or something, and he never got it originally. And when they were talking right before we were about to leave, he was like, yeah, I just thought you were going to mention, you know, somebody else. And she just said, oh, the blonde-haired girl with the name, like, blah, 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 like, kind of gets it. And then it was, like, pretty much said her name.
Wow.
And he was just, like, he started crying a little, and, like, he was just, like, and for me, it was like, oh, okay. You literally can't make this up.
Yeah.
There's no way you could possibly not, like, that you could just know that. And then that was the start of my, like, journey, I would say, where I was kind of opened up after that. But that was probably about a year and a bit after the accident.
Wow.
That whole kind of played out, and there was a lot in between that, but a lot of unconscious behavior and stuff, and, you know, it's pretty numb, and there's, like, a lot of things going on at the time. Like, there's this event going on, and I got all these amazing opportunities to go do a bunch of stuff and meet amazing people, and wasn't really the best circumstances to be touring the world a little bit, or North America, and hanging out with NHL players I looked up to my whole life, or, like, you know, just meeting these amazing people and getting these opportunities. So I was, like, wasn't really focusing on my spiritual journey at that time. I was more just trying to enjoy what was happening, and just I realized at the time, like, this isn't going to last forever, so I probably should enjoy these experiences while I got them. So that would have been the start.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that going through something as traumatic as you did, and, you know, I was saying to you downstairs when we were talking ahead of time that I will say trauma is trauma. It doesn't matter whose experience is worse than another. It's perspective, really.
Yeah.
And I would say that having gone through something as traumatic as that, and it kind of forces you to have a spiritual awakening, because you have to question why. Why are you here?
100%.
Right.
And I felt like I never really questioned why either when it happened, which was a weird thing.
As most people would, right?
I had, like, almost an instant understanding of,
I have to be here.
Well, yeah, like, something, I could understand how it could happen. And then it didn't bother me as, I was almost, like, concerned that it didn't bother me as bad as it did. Like, the way I handled it, almost, like, it just, like, made sense how something like that could happen. And then made me accept it a lot quicker, I feel like. But obviously, like, there's a lot of, like, parts in between that memories of it, and, you know, just the whole day itself more afterwards, I felt almost a little more traumatic and stuff. But obviously there was a lot to still unpack and deal with that trauma. But, like, for some reason something made it make sense for me in my head. Just looking back, was just spirit, I think, just preparing me or allowing me to understand it, I guess. That's kind of how it felt anyways, as I'm talking about it now, working that out. But yeah, that's kind of what it was like.
Did you feel like a certain expectation from others to heal the way that they wanted to? Maybe to heal the way that they wanted you to heal, maybe? Definitely.
I mean, when you got, like, that many families all involved and stuff, it can get pretty hectic, and, well, there's just a lot of opinions around a lot of things too, which is tough, and, like, you gotta respect everybody's privacy and, like, what they were going through and their grief and their trauma, and that was really tough, I'd say, like, just because everyone's got their own way and own path of dealing with a lot of grief and stuff like that. So it was just tough not stepping on people's toes, and like being respectful to other people,
right,
in your own healing journey as well, which I found that hard because I felt like I was alone sometimes on a lot of my healing path, and but that was okay. Like it was just everyone was on their own journey and stuff too, and everyone's at their own places at different times. And I know, like, luckily, like with the surviving boys and stuff, we grew pretty close, but we also understood that everyone's going through different stages at different times, I feel like. And
100%.
we really, I feel like we did a really good job of supporting each other in that sense, because not like we got along about everything or how things were dealt with, or there's always drama with a lot of things, but we always support each other at the end of the day, and that really helped, I think, in that sense of the healing part, where you didn't feel drawn to heal a certain way. I think after a certain amount of time, like, right, it was just everyone accepted everyone's on their own path of healing, and everyone's got their own.
You're all going to do things differently at different times,
exactly,
right?
And everyone's got their own way of handling with things, and you got to respect that. And
you do.
And I think other people ended up really respecting that for me as well. I think, even though I didn't handle it maybe the best, I like to shut out and just push everything away and isolate. That's kind of like how I like to deal with stuff. And that's like my automatic thing, is to just isolate myself.
I'm the same way, so I get it. Yeah. And not many people understand that, but it's a way of like protecting yourself.
Yeah, and just like not being influenced by outside factors and stuff like that, which that can be tough as well. Like I struggle a lot with just the media side of it and the attention on. I felt guilty for getting attention for something that I didn't even do. I was just there.
Yeah.
So I was like, I didn't feel like I didn't do anything to gain the attention that was valuable,
Right.
But I was getting a lot of it. So then it was like a guilt in that sense of just all this attention just for happening to be a survivor of something so tragic, right? So
I can't even imagine, honestly. And do you still talk to the other guys that survived?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, frequently?
Yeah, we get together once a year. We go have a group weekend kind of thing together. We try to every year. We did a Kelowna trip one year, and so yeah, and we do I know we did 2 like Zoom calls with all the boys, just like during the winter and in the fall. So like, and then some of the boys live around in Alberta here, so you see them every now and then, or so we're still all the boys are pretty like everyone. A lot connected. Of guys are we're all connected. Everyone's doing their own things, and we're kind of at that age now where guys are getting girlfriends and things are getting serious, and life is kind of going on. So it's been really cool to watch the guys grow and see them grow as well.
Yeah.
But we're all kind of realizing, like, damn, we're getting old now. Like, everyone's realizing, like, life's moving forward, and everyone kind of goes their own way, but, like, we're still connected, and that's a good way to put it. I think you'll always
be connected.
There's no getting away from it.
Well, and that's it. Who can say that? I don't know if anyone in the world can understand the 13 of you the way that you guys do. Mm-hmm. There's nobody that's going to understand that. Yeah. They can empathize, and they can say that they, feel for you and things like that, but nobody can understand it but you guys, because it's something that you all experience in a way that nobody can ever truly understand. It's just I can empathize even as a healer and say, oh my goodness, like I can feel the emotion behind that experience, but I can't say that I could ever put myself in those shoes.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that we figured out pretty early. It was just like, nobody's going to get it.
Only you guys.
And we are the only ones that get it. And it's something that's bonded us for life. And we're like, those are my brothers till the day I die, right? And always will be. So like we understood that there's going to be times when nobody's going to understand, but it is what it is, and only we get it, and it doesn't really matter.
And I hope that you guys, you guys will probably, I think what may happen is you will go in and out of each other's lives forever, but I think there will always be that a deeper understanding that if you didn't speak to one of them for 10 years, that you could call them, I think, and
it'd
go
be like
right
you
back
just
to
talked
normal.
to them. Yeah, and that's how it is too. It's not like I talk to every one of the guys all the time. Like I'm definitely closer with a couple of boys that live closer to me in Alberta here, but if I was to shoot a FaceTime right now to any of them, it would be like the last time I talked to them, right?
Yeah, so which I love.
It's that level of respect we all have for each other, which is I'm truly thankful for, because there is no bullshit really with it. We respect each other. And
you have to, I guess. Now here's a question for you, and it's a little personal, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but do you still speak to any of the parents that had lost any of their kids?
I wouldn't say I reach out to any of them, but we end up being at a lot of events and stuff like that, and whether it's like golf tournaments that, I mean, I think like almost most of the parents who had children pass away have golf tournaments and stuff like that, so there's so many of those going on, but obviously it sucks you can't make it out to every single one, and so like there's always events throughout the years that, you know, some of them, whether it was like Memorial Cup, there's almost all of us back there, and then there's the Humboldt golf tournament where a lot of the families come back as well too, and they run a hole for each of the guys, and so like you end up seeing a lot of them a lot through events more, I would say, but I've had parents reach out to me and stuff as well, and some more than others and some not really at all, but I mean, yeah, that's basically the gist of it, but I don't really know how that's going to go moving forward, but but it was different, like mostly just because we couldn't relate to their pain, right? Well, and their experience, and we could on a certain level, but not on a losing a child level, which is like the hardest thing anyone could probably go through.
Well, so I'm a mom, right? Especially, and just the thought of it's heartbreaking, and you can't put yourself in a position like that unless you've experienced it. And my question too was, after this happened and soon after, did you ever find that any of the parents maybe clung to you guys a little bit because you were that final piece to?
Yeah, like in a sense, but I never found it in a negative way. More so they just wanted to see us thrive. Yeah. And see us like make the comeback in a sense, you know, like the underdog story. I feel like they just really wanted the best for us, and
I believe that.
And they almost feel like we're their kids in a lot of sense now, like and maybe not exactly like that, but that's maybe how like they felt like they could see us grow and like remind them of their kids that, you know, who didn't make it. And I think that might have brought them a lot of like warmth and maybe something like that, like healing in a sense, just seeing us get better. But I feel like that might have been hard for them as well at the same time. Yeah. So, I mean, I just can't really speak for them, honestly. I can't really know what a lot of families were thinking, but I know, like, I never felt like any ill will or anything like that. It was always love. It was a clinging of love.
And that's what I was thinking. Yeah. I would assume, just from being a parent, that the clingy part would be trying to hold on to you guys because it's what they have left of that puzzle piece, right? And that's more so what I was getting at, was just speaking as, you know, a mom. Yeah.
And that's something I'll never understand, just being a kid still, you know, like a young man. So I hope I never have to experience that ever, but like I just can't fully speak for them, just because we had, like, it was a completely different experience for them, for the families of the deceased versus the families of the survivors. For sure, a complete different experience. That the hardest thing for me was that survivor's guilt of that, and having to watch their parents go through that and be like,
and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, like I'd give myself up in a second to see, like, to stop that, you know, like seeing the pain and the loss and why my son, and, you know, like that is what's really hard, I think, to accept. And won't know, you know,
I know.
So that's tough, and that was a tough thing I think a lot of them had to go through, was also seeing us try and thrive and
still live and still be here.
Yeah.
And I think as a medium, you know, I've been doing this work for so many years, and watching and listening to many survivors of tragedies, I think survivor's guilt is very real for a lot of people, because
100%.
It's that feeling of, why me? Why am I still here?
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't get a chance to be. And I think that is probably one of the most difficult things for the people that I've worked with, listening to their stories and them trying to make sense of their purpose here. And you and I having our conversation this morning about, you know, how I know you have a lot of work to do. You have a lot of work to do here. And I know you have a very deep understanding of that. And even though you're so young, I know you may not think you're so young, but to me, you're very young. And I look at you as extremely wise. You have a lot of wisdom within your soul. And that tells me that you are a natural born healer. I saw it the minute that you came into my healing room. I was like, whoa, who is this guy? And I knew nothing about you. All I could feel was this high vibrating energy that was coming off of you. And I knew that you had a lot of work to do to get to where you need to be as a healer, but I was also shown that I was going to be a part of that journey. And here you are, and here you sit, and it's just the beginning. You know, I know there's so much more, but that's kind of why I wanted to have you on the podcast, not just to talk about, like I said, the tragedy that doesn't.
It's a part of the story.
It is a part of the story. It's a part of the story that is bringing you to who you are today and where you're going to head, really.
For sure. And I definitely felt like for a while there, that was all that was ever going to define me, was just like the kid that survived the accident, you know. That's just what it was going to be. And I met a lot of great people, but I never, you know, met them because I just survived something. It was never that I did something or brought up anything of value. I never felt like I never felt as fulfilled.
Yeah,
doing
I can
that,
understand
you know?
that.
It was just like I was thrown in it. And then but at the same time, I had to take a step back and be present and be grateful for what I was experiencing. Because I knew it wasn't what the average anybody gets to experience. It was pretty special stuff. But that was the hard part, was balancing that I don't deserve it.
Yeah.
And just shut up and enjoy it, because it's not going to last forever. So that was a tough struggle I bounced with for probably a couple of years there, when all that stuff was happening after the accident, and just the attention. And I mean, that was a crazy thing, was just the amount of attention it got.
Yeah.
Worldwide, and just blankets, like quilts, school stuff, like kids, just everything just being mailed to us. And
really? Wow.
Just like the amount of support was just like unbelievable. Like, you can't even put it into words. It didn't feel real. It was so much support. Like it was just it was a gift for sure, looking back. But at the time, I almost looked at it as like, how is this possible?
Yeah, fair.
I never thought it'd be me. I never felt like I was special, really. You know, like growing up, I just like small town kid.
Yeah.
Growing up, like it was just bizarre for me. It was foreign in a sense. So.
And then here you are, going through life now on this spiritual journey of discovering who you really are. And that's what's magical to me, because, and hence why you're here. I suppose when I look at you psychically, I'm amazed at what I see. I truly am amazed at what I see, because I have 2 boys, and I've said that to you before, where I see both of my kids in you. It's like, you know, the older version. And it's exciting for me to see that someone as young as you are, could have this wisdom within your soul, because I know both of my kids do, but you will be the inspiration for people like my kids. I think kids these days, especially young males, need to know that being open and understanding of the bigger energies that are out there, and that there is something more. I think it's nice 100%. That they're going to have you to help inspire them in their future.
And that's honestly my goal, and kind of what I've learned honestly in the last 2 weeks. That's kind of come to me. It's been pretty fresh. That's kind of going to be part of my purpose, because I never had that when I was trying to connect all these dots the last 3 years, and it was pretty dark. And some parts of that time frame was discovering a lot of things that, and honestly, it was actually the unlearning that was the hardest part, of unlearning a lot of things I thought were true, which discovered weren't. And that was hard to go through alone, I'd say. But it also, I mean, I'm not saying it was fully a bad thing, because it made me really trust my intuition and trust in myself, and cut the wheat from the chaff a bit there, and took away a lot of the things that didn't serve me as much anymore. Once I started trusting my intuition and just saying, everything I once knew is up in the air. But I'll figure it out. If what's true and what's not, I'll get to the bottom of it. But as of right now, I don't know. I just don't know.
And you're learning, and hence why I think you were brought to me. And I'm again going to say how grateful I am that I didn't know who you were. I didn't know your story at all. And I think most people assume psychics and mediums, like we look people up or we Google them and stuff. Who's got time for that? No. I know I don't, for sure.
When you said that in a pod, I laughed, because that's what I used to think was, these guys could just Google me, it's so easy to fake. But why would you even give a shit to do that?
Why?
Who cares?
Or have the time to do that?
Well, even that, but it's like you're seeing so many people, it's just irrational.
It is.
It's not logical.
Imagine if I knew ahead of time who you were. I don't even think our reading would be as helpful, because when you came in, I knew nothing about you, and I just was there to help because I love your mom so much, and I was like, yep, anything he needs, of course I'll help with. And I just sat beside you going, who is this kid? Like, what is this? Like, how is he so wise? How does he know? And
and you started going through like my childhood and stuff. I'm like, when's she gonna get to the part? Like, doesn't see it yet. And then like the way it came out was like, it was like ominous, almost like quiet, like you
needed to give the permission.
And once I gave it, it was just like
boom,
boom, boom, boom, boom, boom, boom, boom, boom, all these messages, all these images. And then I started seeing the images that you were seeing. That was like wild. What
I found amazing. You were like, your face was so red, you had all this energy surging through you, and I'm watching you. And psychically, I kept seeing you see the same thing as I was, like visually. I was like, he's clairvoyant. Oh my goodness. He's seeing the exact same thing I am. We're both in that energy at the same time.
We were like both remote viewing the same exact
wild.
Images, and I got into remote viewing, like learning about it a couple of years ago through a guy, if anyone wants to look it up, Russell Targ is his name. He's a former CIA agent, and he's worked with CIA psychic
I think
division.
I know this guy.
You can literally look up on CIA.gov, there's stuff on, it's called ESP, extrasensory perception, or something, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
And it's how the CIA uses psychic abilities, which is it's in their own documents. I mean, it's real. It's there. You can remote view stuff. And he would go into talking about finding people's lost items, and they would play psychic tag and all this stuff, where they would send people across the world and say, remote view this person where they're at, and then they would draw it, and they'd be exactly where they're at.
It's unbelievable. And do you know that my dream job when I was my whole life to this day has always been to be a detective. And the reason is because I can see that stuff. And so when I was a kid, my parents always had the news on, and I hated that, right? It was like, it was so negative. But I'd walk into the room and there would be like, a story of, say, somebody gone missing.
Yeah.
And it would be like a little movie would play out before my eyes of what happened to them, where they were located. And honestly, that's the stuff that freaked me out. And that's why I put this away, and I put it aside until my 30s, because I didn't want to see that stuff. Can you imagine what that's like? I know you can because you see it, but it's that fear that comes over you of, oh my God, how can I see this and know this? And then, when you would find out weeks later that that's in fact what happened, through the news or whatever, you're like, I saw all of that happen before my eyes in real time. And I can help, locate missing items. I've found many in my home and I ask to see it. Show me where it's at. I ask my guides, hey, show me where it's at. And then I'll get a vision of where it is, and I'll, go look, and sure enough, it's there. Like,
information is just, information is light, and light's a wave frequency, and wave frequencies are everywhere. So obviously our electromagnetic frequencies of our own self can pick up, or our brains can pick up these. It's just information.
Yeah.
Whether it's verbal, which is also a wave, which is like sound. Light is also information as well. It's how it's how we like computers work, is transferring information through quartz and all that stuff as well.
Yep.
So it makes sense. It's obvious, like it's real. That was a tough thing too, was just like realizing, how is this even considered woo-woo-y when like our military are utilizing these tactics, and not like
police, FBI, CIA.
Like, I remember hearing about like lots of missing children that would be found through psychics and stuff, and I'd be like, yeah, right, like whatever, but you can't make it up.
You can't. It is, if we tap into that energy and we asked to see it, it is shown to us. Not everything is shown to us either, because I had this conversation with a lady last night where I said, I think a lot of people put such high expectations on psychics and mediums, and like I'll get that a lot from certain friends that will joke about it. Well, you're psychic, how didn't you know that? And I'm like, I can't walk around knowing everything all the time either. I'd be crazy. I would go crazy. There's certain things that we're just not meant to know or see. But if there is something that we do want to see and we can tap into that, we are shown it, just like missing kids out there, unfortunately. And I know that I've been asked that too as a medium multiple times, if I do that, or if I help parents that do that. And I did when I first opened up to this. But being honest, here I really freaked out because I am a mom, and the situations that I saw were so horrific that I turned it off. I was like, I can't do this right now. I need to like raise my kids and not have that fear.
And it's not everybody's job. The right people are already out there doing it.
They are. And we all have specialties. It's like a doctor. So you go into general practitioner, or you go into a surgeon, or you go to be an ER doctor or an optometrist, or whatever that modality is. We definitely have specialties.
We do specialize in a lot of things. And I think in a way, that's almost changing a bit, where there's a little more combining of a lot of things, but in a sense not everyone's meant to do every job, right? Like,
right.
I feel like with you already know your job, and whether you're a teacher and being a mom and
for now
everything, like
yeah. Where
I feel like that's what I'm looking for right now, and kind of discovering what my job is going to be.
And it's all kind of, it is unfolding. And like I said, my dream job was to be, it wasn't to do this actually at all. I did want to be like RCMP or a detective. Like I actually wanted to go into that field, and I still, maybe someday, I say never say never, because I know someday I will work with the police and do those kind of missing persons cases and stuff like that. I know I will.
It's just a lot of dark energy.
It is a lot of dark energy, and I think once you Yeah. I think once my kids are raised and I have that strength to do that, I will. But we don't all have to figure it out just as you're young, and you don't have to figure out what your purpose is. I didn't go searching for this. It just organically happened. And I think you're 23, right? 24, sorry. Okay, so 24. Just turned 24. Okay. And so, you've got so much ahead of you that you don't have to try to figure it out or find it. It will find you.
Anytime I've tried to go and find it, I get kicked down a notch.
That's the control aspect, right? When we seek something, it is relinquishing control and surrendering to the unknown, which is very difficult to do. But when we do that, the journey will unfold in front of your eyes.
Well, law of attraction, man.
Yeah,
it's just that you open yourself up to what you want to come to you. And anytime you seek, you destroy, right? Like, that's how I feel anyways. Anytime I've gone seeking for anything, it just blows up in my face.
Yeah, because we're trying to control the outcome. Yeah.
Which you can't.
Who can say that at 24 years old? Like, I haven't met, the only other person that I've met that is like you and that is that wise is Ronnie. And Ronnie's been on the podcast that your mom knows.
When I listened, that was one of my favorite podcasts because my dad's buddy calls me G Baby and he's Baby G. So it was
that's so funny. You two are like two peas in a pod.
I felt like, I was like, man, I get this guy. Like, we had the exact same experience with like going through that spiritual experience, like at a younger age, and the people around you not really understanding.
Yeah. And
just being on a boat by yourself kind of thing, where you're like
very isolated. Yeah.
Nobody really gets it around me, or not that like they don't get me, but there's just that lack of understanding there, where there's always like, I know he does his own thing, but like I don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's hard
that's tough.
It's hard to be, I can't imagine actually having a spiritual awakening at your age. Like, my God, mine didn't happen until I was like 36. And yes, there are little awakenings like we talked about before, you and I alone, but I know there's little awakenings that happen, but then when like this big awakening thing happens, it's like overwhelming, and you guys are having it happen at such a young age. And I think, my goodness,
and it accelerates. It's been accelerating since over the 5 years. It started really slow, got a little bit picked up again. And then honestly, since I've met you, it's one, like every day. Like
something
one
new.
thing after another, message this, message that. That's statistically impossible to be a coincidence. Like this, you can't make it up. Like,
yeah.
And it's like, well, like before I came and seen you, like I was in a lull for about a year.
Yep.
In that awakening where I got so caught up in uncovering truth and exposing lies that I only ever seen lies and the darkness, and then I tried controlling a lot of outcomes in my life that, like I said, blew up in my face, and I lost faith in a lot of sense, where I was like, I almost went back, I call it into the matrix in a sense, where I like just gave up in a sense of that spiritual journey. And then my guides just pushed me to you, and like my mom was hounding me for like a couple months, just like, I think you should go see Karina. I really think you should go see Karina. I'm like, I was never against it. I was like, yeah, I want to go see her, but I was just, and it never felt right time. And then when I hurt my knee here, and then had those 2 weeks of just like pure depression and everything, and going to go see you, it was just like another awakening in a sense, another mini awakening of, oh yeah, okay, wake up. You fell asleep again.
Yeah.
And you hit the snooze alarm and forgot to wake up. Like,
and I will say, you hurting your knee, because it is your knee, right? Yeah, you hurt your knee, and sometimes we're forced to feel, because we go through life existing and not really living. We're just almost like in a rat race, and like it's like Groundhog Day. We do the same thing repeatedly. Like, and I feel like when spirit really wants you to change or to evolve, they will shut you down until you listen. It happened to me. It's now happening to you. And that's even what your mom said. She's like, I've tried to get him to you, but the schedules just didn't align. And I was like, well, it wasn't the time. And she knows that. But then she said to me, well, so he's hurt himself and he's now available and he can't work. So he feels he's ready to come see you. And then hence you coming up and everything unfolding. And I really even sat with you for that. I think we were together like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like 40 minutes, 45 minutes.
It wasn't it wasn't supposed to be that long. And
kept going.
Because I was
amazing,
like,
yeah.
Looking at you going, oh, this is just the beginning of our journey. And I know that I'm grateful that I get to be a part of your future and to see where you're headed, because I think what you need, and like I had myself, is that mentor to kind of explain certain things, the unknown, the things that you're questioning, and to teach you to have that trust, to really dive into your intuition fully and have a greater understanding of how to trust it, whether it's ego or fear or if it's actually insight, right? Yeah. And your mom's incredible. She's an incredible healer. But I think sometimes when we're so close to a situation, it makes it more difficult to have those teachings from. Like even with my kids, I know that there's so much that I would like to share with them and teach them, but I know that I'm not.
You're too close.
I am too close to them.
Yeah.
And I think of even, in 10 years' time, like my youngest will be 24 in 10 years. So I'm like, oh my God, by that time, you're going to have all of this knowledge and extra wisdom under your belt that I think you'll be able to share with my kids. And I think I do know a lot of females in this field, but they need people like Ronnie and you that are going to lead the way, to say it's okay, it's not weird. Because what I think most males are afraid of, even like grown men are afraid to even open that doorway, because they're like, is this too creepy? Is it weird? Is it BS? Like they don't know what to believe.
You are opening yourself up to a more feminine energy. Like, I mean, intuition and all that it's a feminine energy. So you have to step away from that masculine side. And I think there's going to be a big need for a balance of both. I think we lack the balance in a lot of young men. It's either strictly feminine but not spiritually.
Yep.
Or it's strictly masculine and no spirit at all.
Yeah.
Like I guess it's a lack of spirituality in a sense, but it's a lack of understanding, like that there's a lot more out there. And we get like, I put it like when I went to school, it's like a zoo animal in a zoo that was born in captivity. You don't know that the jungle exists. You don't even know it's out there.
That's a really good way to put it.
Like you don't know what's out there, and once you realize that, well, there's all these checks and balances to keep certain information hidden, so we don't, truly understand ourselves. And there is this engineering type sense in the world where they want to say but there's this sense that almost like we're pushed in a certain way, and this is what life is, and this is how it is, and death and taxes and die, and just like like. There was like a lack of, I think we're in a renaissance in a sense of just rediscovering a lot of these old and newer philosophies and stuff. They're coming back in a way, and we're relearning them. And it's bringing us all together, and it's going to, I think, bring balance to a lot of men out there. Because I think, and women, I think like there's a big mix of like the divine feminine, the divine masculine. I think like that's coming back, and like there's a
like
big
the yin and yang
shift.
Needs to be balanced for sure. I really think so too. I think there definitely needs to be a balance within energies with people. Like they are opening up, and there's a lot of people that have questions right now. And even when I started this 10 years ago, it was like taboo. People were like, oh God, I don't want to know anything about it. You do you, but I don't want any part in it. Whereas now I think a lot of people are questioning things, and they're starting to want to know more. And that makes my job easier because it makes it so that it isn't so strange and it isn't bizarre, and people are being a little bit more open these days, and I'm really grateful for that.
You know that there's more. And I think people deep down know that, and they're, once they see other people that, you know, start questioning it, and like, okay, then that, like, you feel more comfortable. Like, that's how it was for me. I know, like, I mean, I had to find stuff online and information online, and certain people who were interested in the information I was seeking, and I realized that they were out there. I'm like, okay, like, I'm not alone here in questioning something, and I'm not the only one who's like, what's going on? Like, I think people are starting to think about, you know, something's going on, and they're questioning what they're being told. And I think that's a really good thing, and I think people are growing from that, and like, there's gonna come a point where it'll be a tipping point, and it'll eventually, it won't be so woo-woo-y. Right? It won't, it'll just be accepted as what it is fact. As
I love that, because that would be so nice for me to not be judged all the time.
Well, I've been scared to talk about a lot of things about people just because it's woo-woo, or, you know,
so
people can't, you can't prove it. I'm like, oh, actually,
but there's a lot of things
actually
that
you can.
You know, well, and
you're
I
just
say
not looking, and then that information's hidden.
Well, think about this. Like, when you think about Wi-Fi, I always say to everybody, you know, if you go to someone's house, you're like, hey, can I get your Wi-Fi? You can't see it, but you know it's there, and you tap into it and you use it, and it works, right?
Yeah, nobody knows how these computers work, but they know how to use them.
And it somehow just magically happens. Yeah. And because people are questioning, it's just, I found this meme on Instagram, and I ended up reposting it because I found it fascinating. And I'm going to read it to you because I think it's really neat. It says, witches call it spells. Christians call it prayer. Spiritualists call it manifestation. Atheists call it the placebo effect. Scientists call it quantum physics. Everyone's arguing over its name, but no one is denying its existence.
Exactly. You can't deny the existence of it.
There's something more, right?
I wanted to understand it, and yeah, at the bottom of the barrel, like, you're left with, like, okay, yeah, there's something here that you, like, it's there. You can't make it up. It's measurably there too. Yeah, right. Which is even crazier. I mean, whether it's Schumann resonance, I mean, I went down so many rabbit holes of trying to understand, like, reality in a sense like that too, and electricity and magnetism, the two forces that rule our, you know, our entire existence, and we don't even know what magnets are and where electricity or lightning comes from, and there's all these answers that just, I was like, what? Yeah. We don't know how a lot of this stuff works, like. But yeah, we trust a lot that's in the unknown, and then there's others that are questioning it. So it's interesting to me. I do feel like in that saying, like, I always felt that way, that everyone was talking about the same thing, just explaining it differently. 100%. We all believe in something, and yet it's the exact same thing, but everybody's choosing to take their part in it and call it what they would like to, and so be it. Go ahead. And certain forces judgment throughout time have manipulated that in a sense too, over time, and to deceive, and that's a tough. I mean, that made me really angry. Learning a lot of the lies and deceit was the injustice, I guess, of it. It just made my blood boil through a lot of that, and that was what I was dealing with a lot before I came and seen you too. Where I saw you mentioned to me, like, the anger's eroding my soul, and it was like, I was just so mad. I said it to you. I saw it. I was like, you're letting it rob you of joy, and you're here for a reason. You have to start accepting that and really embracing the fact that you are here. You are chosen to be here. You chose to stay. Right? Your soul. I always say to everybody before we come here, we choose to experience certain things, and everybody goes, oh, well, you know, some people will argue that and say, well, did you choose to go through these terrible experiences? I'm like, yes. And they're like, that's crazy. And I said, but that's what we signed up for. Our souls came here to go through these, you know, the good and the bad, to evolve.
and find our way back to
it's like
light.
It's duality. It's the yin and the yang. Like, you wouldn't even know if something was good or if something was bad if they didn't exist. It would just be.
So do you feel that surviving that accident and others not surviving it, does it make sense to you of needing to be here and needing to give back in some way to almost honor those souls by living your best life here?
Yeah, that was like my original thought was like, oh, I have to be my best self now. Like, that's what they would want.
Yeah.
But along that way, like, I definitely forgot that.
And went into the dark a little bit. And that's kind of what we were talking about just a second ago, was the dark and the light. Yes. And I can understand going into that darker place and not making sense of a lot of things and questioning a lot as well.
Yeah. If you're only looking at dark, you'll only see dark. If you're only looking at light, you will only see light. And I just got lost in that and just forgot that, like, obviously I'm here for a reason, or else I wouldn't be, because I really shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Judging, like, from where I was sitting, from the entire story of, like, choosing to, like, go and lay down 10 seconds or, like, a couple minutes before it happened, and the way I was sitting on the bus that made me live, and, like, all of these weird things that happened beforehand. I knew it wasn't a coincidence that happened that way. And I knew that from the start, but yeah, along the way, when you get lost in the darkness, just you forget why you're here.
I think you need to go into I think everybody needs to go into the dark in order to appreciate the light. And
I'm happy I went through it now, but I wasn't very happy when I was going through that. And that's the transformation and the lessons that you learn from those bad experiences that make the evil necessary. I think, like, that's the duality of it, because you'd never come to understand a lot of these lessons if you didn't hurt. I mean, learning the hard way is always the best way, I say. Like, I've never truly learned anything, and, like, something stuck with me, unless I've learned it the hard way by making a mistake or losing something or getting lost, like, in the darkness. Like I said before, like, I would have never truly appreciated the love and the light like I do, because I've seen the dark.
Yeah.
And I can see how bad it can be.
Yeah. And then you fight to stay in the light. And do you ever feel, because even, I'm going to ask you this question, because when we were in my healing room and I was doing the reading, and like I said, you were right there with me in that energy, and I could feel you on the other side with me. Do you ever feel any of their energies, even Ryan?
All the time. Especially, I'd say Ryan the most, because that one shocked me more than anything, because it happened a month before. I mean, on another 13 day too, which, I mean, if you're into numerology and stuff, it's like 13 is just a crazy one for me. But like, that was really, really tough, because I was really growing closer to him before he passed too, and we were, like, becoming better friends and a lot tighter, because we actually were, like, we'd fight all the time and stuff that during that year, and, like, bust each other's balls and like, you know, like, give it to each other a little bit. And, like, we'd had some times where, like, there was a time when we didn't even we took separate vehicles to practice, because it was me, Ryan, and one of my other best buddies, Levi, who were the three kids from Olds, and we were playing in Red Deer. It was 45 minutes away, so we carpooled every practice together every day. And there was, like, a month there where we didn't talk, like, we weren't driving to practice together and weren't talking. But, like, over that course of the year, we really grew really close. And then just because so many car rides and everything, and the way I found out too, just being in Humboldt and then having to fly back the next day, and everyone was getting ready for playoffs, and I was supposed to be excited for playoffs coming up, and was just dealing with my broken face at the time because I took a slap shot to the face and shattered my orbital bone.
I saw that in your reading.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. You did. You're like, what happened to your face?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I was dealing with that a month before he passed away too. That was in February, and he passed away in March. So it was like, and I felt him. Well, I know now that before the accident and all that, he was with me, and he was part of the reason I'm alive still. And I know that is that he was with me and protected me. And
yeah,
I knew that right away. And I think my mom even mentioned I was pretty high on a bunch of painkillers and stuff when I was in the hospital, but a day later or something, I was murmuring stuff in my sleep and out of my sleep and in and out, and I don't remember a lot of it because,
of course,
well, I think it was either the trauma of it or the drugs, so one of the combination of both. So
yeah,
but she remembers me speaking a lot of stuff where I was just channeling, I guess is what it was, and looking back, I guess exactly what I was just channeling.
Yeah.
And yeah, he came to me lots, and the crazy, he comes to me through light. So it was almost like anyone watched Stranger Things in the Upside Down,
yeah,
with the lights going off, flickerings, and just I was originally you question it, and you're like, is this real? Is it just is it by chance that it just happened to flicker at this time when I just look at it randomly at this random light, and then it flickers, and it's does that happen every whatever? Is it just a faulty light bulb, whatever it is? But I dropped out of school in Wisconsin 2021, and I was driving down to South Carolina to visit my brother who lives down there, and I was in the middle of Illinois somewhere, and I want to say, I can't remember the city. It was some city I was going through, a smaller city, and going around on the freeway, and it's dark out and all the lights are on, and then out of nowhere, just all the lights go off, the entire freeway. And my hair stands up on my back, and I'm just like, oh my God, what the hell? And I come around this corner, and all that's there is this massive cross that's lit up, and it was huge, 3-story cross that's on the side of this highway, and it was all the lights just happen to go off, and then I look and it's there, and I was like, everything. So that time I knew it was all the boys, and a lot of my angels, and that was right after I made a decision to leave hockey and quit school, and it was a big decision that I made that I wavered on for a while, and it was a reassurance that no, you made
the right choice.
You made the right choice. Get out of there.
Yeah.
And it was and I was just I drove right down to Nashville that night and just had a night alone to myself in Nashville, listening to music, and I don't know, I just felt them with me, but there'll be times when I'm driving in the most random spots and a light will just flicker right under me, or so many times that happens. And it's statistically impossible to be a coincidence that many times.
Many times, exacth
and I get an instant, and the first thought is somebody, and normally it's Ryan, but sometimes it's a couple other boys that come to me a lot too, where they were kind of spiritual boys beforehand too, and I don't know, I just feel a deeper connection to some of them. Absolutely. And I feel they come to me more often than others. But whoever I get an instant thought of, I just instantly, it's a feeling of knowing. It's not a feeling of believing.
That's
at
right.
all. I think truth is a knowing, and it's a frequency, and you can pick up on that frequency, and that's the hair standing up on the back of my neck, or
you got it.
You get the heebie-jeebies, or the shiveries.
Truth resonates at such a high vibrational level, and that's why our hair stands up. And I tell everybody that if your hair stands up, that is something that is absolute truth or spirit nearby as well.
Well, it's an electromagnetic. It's a measurable frequency. It's you literally can't make it up. It's measurable. It's there, and you feel it.
Yeah.
And that's what took me so long to figure out, was you can literally feel this stuff. It's not believing at all. There is no believing. It's knowing. And that's what really changed. Anytime I find myself trying to believe something, I know that's probably not as true as if I just know. I have like that frequency of knowing. Like, I know this is true.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
And you do need some belief in there and like hope and stuff like that. But when you come across the truth, like, you know it's the truth. It's a deep knowing. You don't believe it's the truth.
It is a feeling from the inside. It's our intuition at its best.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like the gut feeling, like you have different nerves in your gut, which are the same nerves in your brain, which literally, like, your nerves are picking up those electrical signals, and that's why you get that gut feeling. That's the science way if you want to look at it. There's a spiritual way if you want to look at it. There's a lot of ways of looking at the same thing, like we said before in that post you had there. Like, so many ways of saying the same thing, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I love that you're explaining that to everybody, because for the people that are questioning it out there, sometimes all it takes is their own experience in order for them to understand it, because we can't force people to, but we can help guide them to, right? And what you just said makes a lot of sense. I'm really glad that you still feel all the boys with you, and especially Ryan, because as you go through the rest of your life, they will always be as guides to you, to guide you to safety.
I'm going to need them too, actually. Now I'm like thinking, like, when we got into spiritual protection and stuff like that.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's going to be nice having a good team.
You have a great team. There will be, I know that without a doubt, that they'll be a part of your team to help guide you to make good choices in life, to keep you safe. I know I ask upon my guides and a lot of the people that I've helped on the other side, when I really truly need some help with something in my life, I definitely ask. They say, ask and you shall receive, and it's true. And so I keep going through life like that, and I'm glad that you're going to do the same, because that's when I know that you will do really great things, and you're going to help a lot of kids and younger people out there to do the same. So, yeah. Well, Graysen, I really want to thank you so much for coming on here today and sharing your story, because your story is quite unique. But what I love about you is that you're so willing to be of service to others and to help others. And I cannot wait to be a part of the rest of your life and journey with you alongside you as well, because it's inspiring for me and for my boys. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense to everybody out there, but to have very sensitive children and to see someone who's experiencing what you're experiencing, it's really inspiring for me to know that there's hope for them to have a greater understanding of what is out there. So thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me, and you've been an amazing inspiration in the short time I've known you, and I'm just... I literally prayed a couple months ago for a mentor and somebody to look up to, and like the next thing you know, you're right in my life. So I can't thank you enough for being here and inviting me on. A little scary for me to be this open. This is probably the first time I've ever truly expressed myself, like, from the soul. So a little scary, but just thank you for letting me do it. And
it's for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason.
I love that. If you would like to book a reading with me, I can be reached at www.divinemessages.ca or on Instagram at divinemessages333 or at the Divine Messages Podcast. Please bear in mind that the perspectives and opinions represented in this podcast are based solely on the Divine Messages interpretations. We can in no way be held responsible for the actions of our followers.